right? So somebody, for example, and this is where this thing becomes on the right-hand side, the core tenet of leaky skin, this is where this whole concept becomes really important. So on the left-hand side, at least my left-hand side, you can see the types of things that disrupt the skin microbiome, right? Age. One of the first things you notice about age as you start measuring the skin microbiome over time is you start to lose diversity on the skin microbiome, which makes your skin less resilient to influences. So less resilient, for example, to personal care products that may have irritating ingredients in it, less resilient to fabrics that may have things on it that are irritations, like whether it's the texture of the fabric or even the detergents that are used, the dyes, and all of those things that when you were younger didn't bother your skin. Now it's causing redness, inflammation, and so on the skin. It also makes you less resilient and more damaging from UV radiation. So it increases photosensitivity, right? This is why younger people, when they go in the sun, they can, they might burn if they're not using the right amount of sunscreen and so on. Their skin recovers and they might even look tan after that. But as you get older, more and more sun damage leads to hyperpigmentation, right? You get sunspots, age spots, as we used to call them. You get all this discoloration on your skin. You even get fine lines and wrinkles. It leads to wrinkles, like your dermatologist tell you all day long. UV damage leads to wrinkles on your skin, and we'll explain why that is. And so all of that is about resilience. So other things like genetics, your gender, so hormones play a role, climate, the climate that you're in, whether you're in a very dry place or a humid place, and what kind of environment is around you. Are you in a place that's like not that far away from a farm? So there's certain times of year, there's a lot of overspray of pesticides and herbicides in the wind, right, that settles down on your skin, what your diet looks like, what do your cosmetic products look like. There are more and more studies coming out showing that a lot of the cosmetic products are pretty toxigenic to the skin, right? And not only to us as a species, but to the microbes on the skin even. So the cosmetics you use, the personal care products you use, of course, your lifestyle, immune function, gut health, and so on. So there's a lot of things that affect the skin microbiome and disrupt the skin microbiome, just like there's a lot of things that affect the gut microbiome, right? This is why we have to be so cognizant of balancing the skin microbiome and protecting the skin microbiome, because we have endless number of things that affect it in a negative way. Let me explain this right-hand side a little bit. What this right-hand side shows is that there's a trio of communication that occurs on the skin. You've got the community of microbes that live on the skin. You've got the host cell, which is what the community of microbes live among. And then underneath the host cell, you've got the immune system, right? So that there's a very balanced relationship between what the microbes are doing on the skin, how that affects the host cell, and what the immune system does in response to how the microbes affect the host cell. So as an example, if you have Staph aureus, for example, which is a potential pathogen on the skin, that microbial community is producing things like toxins. The toxins can damage the host cell. The host cell sends out signals recruiting the immune system to that area. So the immune system is constantly recruited there, and the immune system that responds is the innate immune system, which does everything through inflammation. So it shows up and it starts bombarding the area, in fact, damaging the skin and everything else even more, right? Along with the skin, not only is it damaging the skin cells, it's damaging the collagen fibers, the elastin fibers. It's damaging the ceramide layer, which is the fatty acid layer that maintains moisture in the skin, right? So it's damaging all of these components. So now the skin gets wrinkled, it gets dry, it gets loose. It may hyperpigment. I'll explain why that is. It starts losing moisture and it starts becoming leaky, right? And that's because now the host, the community of microbes is causing a reaction to the host cells, which is recruiting the immune system, right? And on top of that, if your immune system is more inflammatory and dysfunctional because your gut is dysfunctional, then that immune response is going to be even more profound. And it's going to be even less tolerant of the things you encounter, right? So let's say you've got a part of your skin, let's say on your arm, that has a lot of Staph aureus, a lot of irritating pathogens on it, right? And you rub up against something that's an irritant in the environment, or even what we call contact dermatitis, right? So contact dermatitis is just getting inflammation from just touching something, right? So some people get it, like, for example, in their shoulders if you're wearing a backpack all day, right? So let's just say it's on the shoulders as an analogy. You've got dysbiosis on this part of your skin. You're wearing a backpack all day, you're walking, you're doing hikes, and it's rubbing against it and irritating the skin. Now, because you've got a dysfunctional microbe on that part of the skin, the microbes take advantage of this irritation and produce more toxins. And because you've got a dysfunctional gut, the response to that whole process is a bigger inflammatory response that damages the skin. So you end up with rashes that lead to lesions, that lead to dry skin, that leads to even scarring on those areas, right? Versus having beneficial microbes in that area, what they do in response to the rubbing is they actually dampen the immune response. They go, we don't need to respond to this because it's going to lead to more damage. So they actually will produce compounds to help the host cell reduce the inflammatory triggers that recruits the immune system. And in fact, they can then produce enzymes to turn over the skin cells faster so that you repair any skin cells that were actually physically damaged by the rubbing, right? So the beneficial bacteria will actually adapt to that rubbing and repair anything that needs to be repaired versus the dysfunctional bacteria, which is going to cause a recruitment of the immune system that makes everything worse. Right? That's why one person can walk around and have a backpack rubbing on their shoulders all day and be fine. Then another person has the same scenario and then ends up with all kinds of redness, itchiness, sensitivity, and so on from it. Right? The main difference between those two individuals are what microbes are living there.
Okay, right? So I have a quick question with relation to the leaky gut. As you were talking about this, our diet does make a difference. Whenever I would have inflammation in my gut or my large intestines, I would get zits or pimples on the same side, on both sides in the same spot. And your face is a mask of your body, correct? And so
in a way, yes. And it goes two ways. I'll explain that next.
Yeah. And I would love for you to explain that the face and the gut and organ situation, because I had a backed up liver and right here in my forehead, weird breakout, which I never get a breakout there. So it's obviously telling me something, and there's such a direct link between the gut and the face.
Yeah, so absolutely. So, people used to get something called liver spots, right, on their skin. And that's kind of related to this, right? So the way you think about that is you've got things that have colonized different parts of your face. So let's take those red spots, like right kind of in the middle of your forehead, right? You've got bacteria that have colonized that area and incorporated themselves into your pores. And these are bacteria that respond to inflammation in a negative way, right? So now you've got something wrong with your gut or your liver, and that is leading to more systemic inflammation. It's likely an increase of endotoxin, so LPS. And there's been numerous studies that show that people who have a propensity for acne, right, acne lesions, if they see an elevation in LPS levels in circulation, they break out with a bunch of lesions, right? Because one of the things that happens is that inflammation from within, from the gut, gets translated to the rest of the body. One of the areas in which it gets translated is to your sebaceous glands, right? Remember, your sebaceous glands are trying to protect you, right? They're trying to protect your skin. So the response is, hey, we have inflammation. Oh my God, we have an invasion of microbes. We got to protect this barrier. So the sebaceous glands go nuts and produce more sebum. In that production, they clog up your pores even more. That leads to an overgrowth of the microbes that are already colonized in that region. And those microbes elicit its own immune response. So this is why your gut creates inflammation. Your sebaceous gland responds to that inflammation. The dysfunctional microbes overgrow and trigger more immune response. Right.
Okay. So and then we go into the bathroom and we look at it and we pick it. So what happens when we do that?
Yep. All you're doing is you're contaminating the area with more dysfunctional microbes, and you're potentially infecting that area and causing more immune response, right? Because when you break the skin and you pick it and you pop it and you irritate the skin by squeezing it and doing all that, you're just recruiting more immune cells to that area. And it's getting redder, right? And so then the sebaceous gland goes, holy cow, there's a big open thing now. I got to produce more sebum. And all it's doing is triggering more what the body thinks is a repair mechanism, but it's leading to more lesions and more dysfunction in the area, right? Now, this is why, from a dietary perspective, one of the best things you can do for if you're dealing with acne from a dietary perspective is stop gluten and stop dairy, right? Most dermatologists now know this because there's been a number of studies. I think there's 50 studies or so on diet and acne lesions, and most of them conclude the following: that if you reduce gluten and you reduce dairy, lesions will come down. Right? The reason for that is those two things are inflammatory from the inside, which is creating systemic inflammation, which then drives the sebaceous response. They've also concluded that foods that are high in antioxidants and carotenoids reduce acne lesions. So things like olive oils and fruits and vegetables that are high in antioxidants and so on, those all have a reduction effect on acne lesions, right? For that particular reason, because you can absolutely trigger response on your skin from what's happening on the inside, right? So one of the very important things as we think about skin and skin aging and all that is you also have to really focus on the inside, or you're not going to make any significant improvement. Right. So this leaky skin, right? So where is this idea coming from? And we didn't invent this. This is something that I've been focusing on from a research perspective for a while and following the research on this. And now I think there's a good amount of data that has come out to show that this is a real thing and a real issue, not only for the cosmetic appearance of the skin, which is important to all of us, but also from our overall health, right?